A man with a short beard, a navy blue peacoat, and a bemused expression weaves towards me between the tables in a smart cafe in Pristina. Sitting down, he looks slightly embarrassed as a tall glass of coffee topped with a huge quiff of whipped cream is put in front of him. If a film were made about this man, I decide, he would be played by a young Paul McGann. This is Albert. He's 31 years old. In 2013, he went to Syria to fight jihad. I know it's hard to believe, but it happened, Albert says about his 9 days with different extremist groups. Articulate and focused, he says his primary desire in wanting to go to Syria was to oppose President Bashar al-Assad. To misquote Withnell and I, Albert went to fight by mistake, ricocheting between uncomfortable and frightening experiences. During this eventful, albeit brief period, he says al-Nusra Front, then loyal to al-Qaeda, tried to enlist him before letting him go. Then he went to stay with a group of fellow ethnic Albanians before finding out they were trying to join ISIS, which he didn't want to do. Albert says he escaped while they were busy fighting Kurds and went to join Ahrar al-Sham, a coalition of Islamist and Salafist groups that is not classified as a terrorist organisation. He was taught how to take apart, clean and reassemble a Kalashnikov, but maintains that was all and that he never fought. After just 5 days, he realised life in Syria didn't match the romantic ideas he'd had of joining a revolution to liberate the oppressed. It would be easy for me to lie, like many others have done, saying they just want to offer humanitarian aid, he admits. I really thought I would complete my training and be included in the battlefield right away. What I never intended to do was become a member of a terrorist group. The line between helping and fighting is rather blurred for him. Before he got there, Albert's knowledge of Syria was mostly gleaned from online videos. He was at best naive when he set off. I had imagined this opposition to Assad didn't have people with criminal backgrounds in the ranks, he says. He thought it would, in his words, only have people of goodwill who want to help the population. What he found instead was brutal and petty squabbling between different Islamist factions, more harmful than helpful to Syrian civilians. After explaining to his unit commander that he had contravened a crucial rule of going to fight, that he hadn't asked his mother for permission, Albert was discharged from Ahrar al-Sham and went home. He was away from Kosovo for barely 2 weeks. His mother didn't even know he had been to Syria. Well, not until Albert was arrested early one morning at his family home in 2014. He has been convicted of terrorism charges and sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, which he is appealing. Because of the number of fighters it's exported, Kosovo has been referred to as Europe's capital of jihad. It's a tremendously sensitive subject here. When I broach it with one government official, he abruptly ends the interview saying that the question is all about Russian and Serbian propaganda. As ISIS's caliphate has crumbled in the Middle East, the question is what will happen to the fighters who have started trickling back home? Despite its meagre resources, Kosovo's government is in the uncomfortable position of leading the fight against extremism in Europe. Prime Minister Ramush Haradinaj has said he is willing to have the fighters back, in sharp contrast to some countries, which are stripping jihadists of their nationality. Albert and his friend Arba have set up an organisation called the Institute for Security, Integration and De-Radicalisation. They hope to dissuade people from going to fight and try to counter the jihadist narrative on social media. They also support returnees to stay on the right path, but admit they aren't sure what will happen to many of the fighters who come home. As for Albert, he thinks he will be 34 by the time he gets out of prison. When I was young, everyone thought I would go far in politics and they'd see me becoming someone. But my first media appearance was as a suspected terrorist, he says. As I watch him fuss over his phone, I realise Albert was right. It is hard to believe, and even harder to understand.